Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to share with you some comments that I have about an incredible release from the Criterion collection. It is an incredible film, a powerhouse of a film that still holds up so well even today. And this is Spy number 1019. The film is from 2000 and it is from Spike Lee. The name of the film is Bamboozled. This is from the year 2000, from the great artist Spike Lee, starring Damon Wayans and Jada Pinkett Smith and Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover and Michael Rappaport and others. This film is still today a film that packs an enormous wallop. It is emotionally devastating. It is really very honest and pure, almost to the point of being brutally honest. It is a film that is a combination of many different types of cinematic styles. It is using a digital video filmmaking, but also relying on film for certain sequences in the work itself, which is a very purposeful artistic choice and a brilliant one by Spike Lee and everyone concerned. This is also a satire, but it is also a piercing, probing look at the world of media, film and television, but it is so much more. This film has at its core a kind of depiction of what's known as the minstrel show. And the way that the minstrel show is used here presents so many questions, and they are very disturbing questions. They are questions that are incredibly uncomfortable, but they are questions that really need to be asked. And the way that Spike Lee uses his cinema to ask these questions and to create room for conversation and discussion is very bold, very brave, but also a true indication of the sort of humanism that is at the core of Spike Lee's cinema, and in particular this film, Bamboozled. This is one of Spike Lee's best films, if not his best film. This could be his best film, in my opinion, and I am so happy that the Criterion Collection decided to release this film as it did. I understand that when it was released, it did receive some really great reviews, but it also received some mixed reception as well. And but I think over time, this has gained much more critical appraisal and positive appraisal, and I think it deserves all of the appraisal that it can get, because it really is a brilliant cinematic statement of many concerns that are at the heart of Spike Lee's cinema. And we are dealing, of course, with race. We are dealing with how race is depicted in film and in television, in the media, and how media comes into the equation and creates a kind of the phrase sometimes is media circus, but it is also the way in which trends in media are formed to the point of almost frightening parody. This is meant to be a satire, but it also can be said to be something of a brutal, honest truth, or an examination of these trends and forces in media, both in cinema and television. And it is so prescient. It is very timely. It was made in 2000, so that is about 20 years ago from now. And it is of its time, yes, and I think very brilliantly so. We see many prominent figures and some cameos from people who were, some are very prominent now, and they were quite prominent back in the day, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's wonderful to see many of these references made to that time, and also the actors that are in the film as well. They also have an interesting, subtle, almost meta reference points that are made, and that's also to do a lot with the popular culture at the time, certain television shows that were popular around that time, and things of that nature. So on the one hand, it is a film that is of its time. But on the other hand, and this is one of the things that's so remarkable about this work, is that it is so timeless. And I think timeless is a very loaded term. And here's what I'll try to unpack that. On the one hand, it is timeless in the sense that it is prescient, and it speaks to truths and issues that are so relevant right now. And I'm not just talking about the way in which media is figured into the certain planes of society. I'm also talking about how race has figured into those depictions in the media, in film and television, and how this idea of viral videos is a very prominent thing, and also about violence and about the use of force and things of that nature. This film touches on these subjects in a way that is so chilling, and it's so chilling to see how this film is so relevant even now. And so this film, made in 2000, spoke to a time which is right now, from its point of view, would have been the future. So it speaks in a way that is, in that sense, timeless. But timeless also goes in the opposite direction in terms of temporal planes, because this film also speaks to the past, and it goes into a deep-rooted examination of certain sensibilities that were expressed in the past, and it takes as an example the kind of cinematic past and also literary past in the context of what is at the core of the examination at the center of this film, which is the minstrel show. And it's looking at this minstrelsy, or the nature of this kind of depiction, and it's looking at it in the context of certain works of cinema in the past, or certain works of entertainment in the past, or other artifacts of the past that come to life in a very brutally shocking way through the eyes of the filmmakers here. And it is, in that sense, a real thought-provoking, eye-opening work that is pulling at so many things at once. Many tones in the film give us a great level of discomfort, but I think that is the point. This film is meant to cause discomfort because it is showing a light on a certain subject matter that perhaps is very difficult and very uncomfortable for a number of people to talk about. But that is the brilliance of this film. You know, some might call this film controversial. But what is controversial? Is it the film itself, or is it the subject matter and the issues about which this film is trying to create discussion? Of course, that is something for you, the viewers, to decide when you watch this film. I would actually insist or suggest that it is the film that is not controversial, but in fact the film which is trying to discuss or trying to bring to the surface these issues that seem to have been somewhat, how should I put it? They are always there, but it takes a keen eye, like one that Spike Lee has, in order to bring them to our attention in this cinematic fashion. And that is another brilliant thing about this film, my friends, is that Spike Lee's cinema here is the type of cinema that is kinetic, that is energetic, that is dealing with many different types of cinematic genre or modes of expression. He is using the digital video camera, but he's also using film, a 16 millimeter film, in a very effective, chilling way that elicits many different reactions. And that's what great cinema does. But that doesn't end there. He also uses certain elements of fantasy. He also, of course, relies on the sharp tools of satire. He also relies on his music and the way that music is interwoven very purposefully, very artistically, in a way to create a sense of calm and atmosphere, of course, in a beautiful cinematic sense, and also to create unease and tension, which also is in the true cinematic form that we have come to know and admire from the works of Spike Lee. And that is just the starting point of a film that is so supremely loaded with ideas and concepts that it is, as I say, timeless. It is of its time, and it is still so timeless and prescient. And it is also dealing so deeply with the past. So it is a film of the past, it is a film of the present, and it is a film of the future. An amazing accomplishment. As I say, one of Spike Lee's best, if not his very best. This film is Bamboozled. I am so happy that Criterion released this film when it did. This is a film that, my understanding is that it's a film that might have received maybe some people at time of its release might have really championed it and really supported it, and maybe there were other voices that were maybe less keen on the film. But I think over time this has really grown to the point that it really deserves all the attention that it can get and all the room for discussion that it really presents to us, and really gives us the opportunity as viewers to really think about our own sensibilities and what it is we do. I mean, I think about this when I see the film and how I perceive the world, and how I perceive the world through television, through cinema, and through my own understanding of past issues and past historical events and current events. This is an eye-opener. This is a true eye-opener. But it is also, I must stress this is also the work of a real humanist, a humanist cinematic artist. Spike Lee's art is, I would suggest, at its very core and in essence, it is a cinema of real heart and soul. It is a cinema that asks many questions, and it leaves us feeling uncomfortable many times, of course. But it is the cinema of a real humanist artist. And he is asking questions because you can tell that he really cares. And it is this kind of cinema that really excites me. And it engages with me. And I'm, as I say, I'm so happy that Criterion released this because now it can give yet more opportunity for the exploration of this truly important, groundbreaking work that is at its real heart and soul, I would suggest, a work of true humanism. And it's asking of questions and also at the same time really painting a picture of entertainment and what it is to be entertained. It's painting this picture in real time as we're watching it, which is an amazing feat. Absolutely amazing. And I could go on and on about this film and how excited and how excited it makes me feel, how ashamed it makes me feel, how difficult and uncomfortable it makes me feel, and also how how deep the camera really examines and really analyzes these issues that it presents. This is Bamboozled, and I, once again, am so happy that Criterion has released this as it has. And speaking of the Criterion release, this is the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray is stunning, absolutely stunning. This has a new 2K digital restoration, according to the back. It says here, supervised by director of photography Ellen Kuras and approved by director Spike Lee. And I'll get to director of photography Ellen Kuras and Spike Lee more in a second when I talk about the supplemental features. Next, I should speak to the audio commentary track, the optional audio commentary track, which is found on this disc. This is an audio commentary track which I understand was from an earlier non-Criterion release, but still it is certainly worth listening to, my friends. This is Spike Lee on his own talking with us as we are watching the film about this work, Bamboozled. And to hear him talk is just a real treat. So much to learn from. He talks in real earnestness about his concerns and his what he is thinking about certain aspects of the filmmaking process and the production of this film. He also talks about current issues that were current at the time, around 2000 or so, or the late 90s and the early 2000s, around that time. He's also talking about specific references that are made to the film, specific cuts of the film, talking about the background production and the research that went into the deep, detailed research that went into the film, and the way that certain pieces of cinema were quoted by this film, or how certain artifacts of history were used in this film to real chilling effect, and it was all for a point. And these are just examples of how deeply brilliant Spike Lee's commentary track is. It's really great to have. So that's the commentary track, and then we have a number of new Criterion produced supplements. So the first is called In Conversation, Spike Lee with Ashley Clark. Now, Ashley Clark and Spike Lee are speaking together in a room, and Ashley Clark is, he also wrote the essay, which is found in the booklet here, and he obviously has a great admiration for the works of Spike Lee, and in particular, my friends, this work, Bamboozled. And so he has written about Bamboozled, and he speaks here with Spike Lee about specific instances of the film and how he reacted to the film on a very emotional level. And Spike Lee also responds and also talks about the film and its key influences, and also the key importance that that he feels it has. And it's a must-watch conversation between these two gentlemen. We see the master artist in his element talking about a film that is very, very significant in his career, and we have the Ashley Clark asking great questions and follow-ups, and also adding his own insights into this very complicated and deeply profound work. So that is a great supplement to have. So In Conversation, Spike Lee with Ashley Clark. And then we have a supplement called Man Ray and Womack. So these are references made to the characters played by Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover. And so these are two interviews that are essentially cut together into one supplement. And the interviews are with Tommy Davidson, and then one with Tommy Davidson and one with Savion Glover. And they're separately filmed, but they're edited together. And they are talking about their experiences with the film, how they view the film, specific scenes that were very significant to them in the film. And as you know, they play crucial roles here. And they talk in detail about specific points in the film. I won't go into detail, but needless to say, their recollections of specific instances of scenes in this film, I think, is very, very telling. They are very they express themselves incredibly well, and they remind us just how electrifying their performances are in this film. They play two characters, of course, that are linked, but they also have certain contrasts and comparisons that play themselves out oh so skillfully as the film progresses. And so it's just a wonderful thing to have this set of interviews with the two actors. So that's Man Ray and Womack. And then there is an interview, a one-on-one interview with Ruth E. Carter, costume designer. And Ruth E. Carter is someone who has worked with Spike Lee before, and she speaks about the context of her working relationship with Spike Lee, also in the context of this film specifically, and also during the time she was someone who worked on many films during this time, and so she was talking a little bit about the other films that she was working on around the same time as Bamboozled, or around the vicinity of Bamboozled, let me put it that way. And then she also goes into some really pointed detail, giving her insights as to the real significance of the film through her eyes, and also the significance of Spike Lee's artistry and craftsmanship. So again, another great interview that Criterion has provided to us. So this is Ruth E. Carter and her interview about the film. And then there is a great critical interview given by author and professor Raquel Gates, and this is called On Blackface and the Minstrel Show. And Professor Gates is talking about the film in a critical context. She mentions that she has taught the film, and she has experienced watching the film many times, and so she is a great expert in this film, and also I think by extension in the works of Spike Lee. And so she gives some really fascinating, on-point comments about this film that really open this film up and really give this film a completely new light, at least in my view. Some of the things that she says, I won't go into specifics because they do go into a little bit of spoiler territory, but there are many insights that she gives that I think are quite mind-blowing, and they give this film yet even more life. I mean, it was filled with so much life to begin with, but they give this film even more life, and to see this film through her suggested reading of it is, I think, of a level that makes her discussion of the work absolutely essential, and it's wonderful to have her insights here. It's really great. They're just and she gives references that I think are also very important here about the sort of the cinematic past that this film is working with, and she mentions, of course, figures like Willie Best and Stepin Fetchit and Manton Moreland and Ben Carter, etc. And also she has this great way of discussing this idea, the temporal significance of the film, which is what I was trying to suggest earlier in the video, but she says it with much more effectiveness. And let me see, I wrote the quote down, and she said that the film is dealing with a kind of resurrection of history, and she describes it as being something of an exploration of history, to the point that we as audience members can take that with us into an examination of contemporary popular culture. And this is all to say that she also acknowledges that this film is a kind of timeless film dealing with the past, so that we as viewers can engage with it actively and really take it with us as we explore and examine the way in which we engage with media to this day. And so it has a real certain direct significance, which is what she's suggesting, and really quite astutely so. I'm very, very impressed with this. And she has, again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but she has a real particular reading about the ending of the film and how the film ends. And the way that she reads this and the way that she suggests we as viewers look at this ending is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So watch the film first and then watch Professor Gates's interview on the Criterion Collection and see her reading of the film's ending. It's just absolutely brilliant. Strongly suggested. A must-see, essential viewing. And then there is a making of documentary, making of Bamboozled, which is not a Criterion-produced one, but it's one that is, I think, again, borrowed from an earlier release from the early 2000s. But this is really good because this has interviews with cast and crew, and also some interviews with some people on the cast that we didn't necessarily see in the Criterion-produced supplements. So we get little excerpts of interviews with Damon Wayans, for instance, and also Jada Pinkett Smith and others, Thomas Jefferson Bird and Michael Rappaport and others. And so I think this is very, very significant. Also, there are interviews also with Bud Schulberg. That's very significant, especially when we remember the references that Spike Lee himself acknowledges are being made to films like A Face in the Crowd and others. And so I think this is very significant. Also, there is a film columnist here interviewed, Jack Newfield, and he really describes Spike Lee's cinema and Spike Lee as a filmmaker as being a universal humanist. I really appreciate that comment, and it's so great to have. And plus other things. I love Damon Wayans too. His role and his performance is so deep, and it's so it is very, very complex. And to hear him speak about his influences and the style that he tried to adopt in playing this role, it was really great. And he's also very casual, and he jokes and he's laughing and very pleasant. He refers back to his to Blank Man, and he also at the same time, of course, he is showing just as an actor and a performer just how observant he is. And it really comes through in his performance really well. And also I should mention Jada Pinkett Smith, whose performance here is just revelatory. She provides a real emotional core, an anchor that is so important and so critical to this world that the film is presenting. And so she becomes someone that we really look to for guidance, and she gives us a character that is very, very important. There's an almost noble stoicism to the way that she portrays the role, and yet she also gives it, of course, a real great life, a lived-in quality of great observation and intelligence. And so we get some excerpts of interviews with her, with Jada Pinkett Smith, in this making of documentary as well as other great excerpts of interviews, including Spike Lee himself, and also Spike Lee talking about the other artists on the crew. There's also a little bit of an interview with the director of photography, Ellen Kuras, which is really great. And we actually see a little bit of the behind the scenes and her in action on the set with the camera. And there's also some information about the reasons for shooting this film, the way it was shot, and the cameras that were employed, etc. There's also some information given about the production design and Victor Kempster and certain choices that were made with design and the backdrop of the show and the performances, etc. And many other comments like that. So this is, again, it's not a Criterion-produced documentary, but it does provide further further things to think about that are related to what we saw in the supplements up to now, but also give us some more and some new avenues for thought and discussion. So again, very, very essential. Then we have a deleted scene section. And so we have a number of deleted scenes, and you can tell that they're deleted because there's a little bit of a direct video quality to them. I think my understanding is that the film in the DV video reliance tended to then there was maybe kind of a visual treatment of the image itself, but there is a real direct video quality to these deleted scenes. So my understanding is, had they been included, they would have been treated in the same way. But you see these deleted scenes as they were shot, I'm assuming, and they're all kind of also cut together in a way that they are complete scenes. And so we get a little bit of background into, say, the relationship between Man Ray and Womack, for example. We get a little bit more about Delacroix and Dunwitty, and we also get a little bit of the show, the minstrel show, a little bit more of that, and there's some other background information, background characters that we see in the final film, and we see little snippets of in the final film, but they're really more extended in these particular scenes. So it's interesting to see how they play out. It's still very consistent with the final product, I would suggest, but it's always interesting to see those. And then we have a section which is, I think, music videos, and we have a section which is sort of the commercials that were used in the universe of the film. So the music videos, the Mau Maus, which is also a very key element of the film's plot. And then we have Gerald Levert with the song Dream with No Love. And we have the commercials of some of the products or some of the things that are being satirized within the context of the universe of the film Bamboozled. So that's an interesting thing to see. And then we have another supplement, which is a poster gallery, which is a slideshow, but it's an automatically run slideshow with posters. My understanding is that some of them are actually the film posters that were used or maybe conceived in the marketing, and I'm not sure if all of them were actually used in the final marketing push of the film, but some of them do look like marketing posters, or maybe planned marketing posters, or proposed marketing posters. But then there are also posters that are actually within the film world itself. And so that is also very interesting to see. We see throughout the film some posters here and there that are populating the environment. And so I understand that some of what we see in this poster gallery are indeed examples of what we see in the film universe itself. And then there is a trailer, the New Line release trailer of this, which rounds out the supplements here. And then to top it off, we have the insert, which is one of these fold-out inserts like this. And so we have pictures and then the credits about the release itself and the film. And then we have the essay here. And the essay is by Ashley Clark. Again, I mentioned Ashley Clark before because he is a great champion of this film. He also is featured on one of the supplements, the supplement where he is essentially having a conversation with Spike Lee, or interviewing Spike Lee. And so you can see him and his actual active engagement with Spike Lee and his cinema and this film in particular. So it's really great. And so it's Mr. Clark who is providing us with this essay. And this is a really must-read essay. It is thorough. It is all-encompassing. It goes into things that are so current even now, 2019, 2020. And so he makes references, this film is again from 2000, and he makes references to the past and how the film is dealing with the past, and also how the film was current in its in the 2000s, and also how it is relevant even now with even recent events in terms of race, racial identity, race relations, in particular in the United States. And he's making direct references to specific events that occurred in very recent social and political history in the United States, and so it's really worth checking out. This is a must-read essay by Ashley Clark. It's really wonderful to have his insights because, as I say, he is so obviously a champion of this work, and it's wonderful to have his voice to champion it because really, again, the more voices who champion this film, the better, I think. And Ashley Clark's voice is much needed and much appreciated. I must insist upon that. So this is the release by the Criterion Collection of Spike Lee's masterpiece, Bamboozled. And I really hope that as many people get a chance to watch this film as possible. It is now presented in this lovely presentation, and it is given so much room for thought and discussion, and also to give us yet another example of why Spike Lee cinema is so engaging, important, and so full of a kind of heart and concern for humanity. That is, I think, what is at the heart of driving his cinema, and I think that is one of the main reasons why his cinema remains very powerful and potent even today. This is Bamboozled. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. So thank you very much for your time, and until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies, including Bamboozled. So until we meet again, my friends, thank you and cheers.